Today will be a special episode because our guest on this episode is then Vice President Leni, now Attorney Leni, who remains a prominent figure who has dedicated her life to public service and embodied commitment to making a positive impact on society. She is an economist, a lawyer, and a political leader. Although, let me tell you, dear listeners, a very reluctant political leader. The first time that we met, she was in civil society advocating for juvenile justice in their hometown of Naga in the Bicol region and didn't really like the political life. That was her husband, Jesse's life. But, when the needs come, right? There's nothing to be done. You have to accept the challenge and move forward. So Leni Robredo has had a colorful journey in leadership. Even prior to her political career, she worked as a public attorney and a coordinator of the Sentro ng Alternatibong Lingap Panliga or Saligan. It's an alternative legal support group that fought for the rights of disadvantaged individuals and provided legal education. She was also president of the Naga City Council for Women and founded the Lakas ng Kababaihan ng Naga Federation, which provided training and livelihood opportunities for women. And would you believe, she translated Bicol into Bicol versions of relevant laws for greater accessibility. In 2013, she was elected as representative of Camarines Sur 3rd District, where she championed and authored multiple bills, some of which are the People Empowerment Bill, the Comprehensive Anti-Discrimination Bill, and, with much thanks from all of us from Muslim Mindanao, supported the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Then she became the vice president. She was elected as vice president of the Republic and continued to forward transparency and participatory governance. She launched Angat Buhay, which means uplifting lives, coordinating the public and private partnership to help marginalized communities. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, then Vice President Leni Robredo was seen all over the place trying to do what she could to help those who were in need. She ran for the presidency and lost, but the spark that then Vice President Leni, now Attorney Leni, lit among the spirits of Filipinos remains alive and strong. And recently, because Attorney Leni and I are from the same university, the University of the Philippines, I'm so proud that she was awarded this year's Most Distinguished Alumna Award by the University of the Philippines Alumni Association. Welcome to She Talks Peace, Attorney Leni.
Hi, Amina. It's good to be with you again.
So thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the
Thank you.
award for the most distinguished alumna.
And I know, Amina, you have been a recipient of the same award many years ago.
Many years ago. So how are you these days? I understand it's a holiday and you're in the office and you have a lot of
Yes.
visitors.
We don't have holidays. We don't have enough, we don't have enough time to really entertain visitors. So even on holidays, we schedule courtesy visits. The last one just just got out a few minutes before we went online.
And Attorney Leni, these are mostly about angat buhay, right?
Yes, most of them are angat buhay. Most of them were also supporters during the campaign. Most of the volunteer groups that were formed during the campaign have transformed themselves into civil society organizations that have been partnering with Angat Buhay already in the many different activities and projects that we have launched.
So now, after politics, well, we're not really sure after politics, but now you're back to where you started, which is
Yes, yes.
civil society.
I really feel I was meant for this kind of life. For a very long time, I have been a member of the civil society. And I feel like my years in politics was just the aberration. I'm very comfortable working with many different civil society groups also in furtherance of our advocacies to uplift the lives of the marginalized. We work closely with many of the underserved sectors, farmers, fisher folks, women and children, indigenous peoples, urban poor. So I have been working very, very closely with them, even during the years that my husband was still mayor of Naga. So he was in politics, I was in civil society. When he died, there was a call for me to take his place. So that was what I did. President, I ended my term June 30 of 2022. July 1, we launched Angat Buhay as an NGO already.
I've been meaning to ask you, Lenny. I know that you were forced into politics because Jesse passed away and August 18, right? And you were forced into this situation. I know that you really thought long and hard and you prayed over it and finally accepted the challenge. But I've always wanted to ask you, what made you accept it? What inspired you to accept the challenge? Because I know you hated politics.
The first time I was asked to run Amina was just a few months after we lost Jesse. Camarines Sur politics is really all about political dynasties, and Jesse was a lone wolf. He was a
Mhm.
lone wolf in a sea of political dynasties. So when he died, a huge gap was there, and a lot of his supporters, not just political supporters, but his fellow advocates for transparency, accountability, empowerment of the people, were really in need of a leader. I guess it was also because of Jesse's legacy that it
Mhm.
was easier for me to convince people that the fight was all worth it.
Yeah.
Kasi Amina, if you're in the midst of traditional politicians, you know the
Know
works.
what you mean?
At, 'di ba? Kasi it's really patronage politics.
Yes.
People are so used to just waiting for the politicians to give them their kitties.
Yes.
So
Yes.
to go around with no resources at all was very difficult. So I what helped me really was the lessons also that I've learned from Jessie.
Mhm.
My many years as a member of the civil society became very, very helpful in the sense that I was so used to working with the grassroots that it didn't require extra effort on my part anymore to be going around. What I lacked in resources, my vast experience with Jesse and my vast experience with civil society more than made up for whatever it is that I lacked as far as resources is concerned.
Yep. You know, Lenny, a lot of people were saying that for you to win the congressional seat in your district was really not that difficult because of Jesse. and because you did have a base in civil society and among the women. So it would have been hard because you didn't have the resources, but wasn't difficult. So people could easily see you winning. But when you finally decided to accept the challenge to run for the vice presidency, that was seen as more challenge. Because who is Leni Robredo? I mean, Naga, what's the voting population of Naga?
There
And
is
then
one,
you
just 100,000.
yeah, and then you need millions of votes to be vice president. So you became the vice presidential candidate. And again, I ask you, what made you step out of your comfort zone and think that you would go into national politics and be able to make a mark? I mean, females in politics
Yeah.
really have a very hard time making it, Lenny.
The decision making process when I ran for the vice presidency was so different. Was so
Mm-hmm.
different with the context when I decided to run for Congress. Both Jesse and I never had any experience running for a national office.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that it was more than the kind of politics that we were used to for so long. I wasn't the first choice. I wasn't the first choice. I think I wasn't the second either. So when I when I was finally drafted, I just felt that it was a very consequential elections for the country, and I kept on asking myself when I was making the decision making process that if Jesse were alive and the nomination was was the one nominated instead of me, how could he have decided? And I
Mm-hmm.
was very sure at that time that because it was going to be a very consequential elections, Jesse would have decided to run.
Mm-hmm.
If he felt that by running he would be able to help not just the party, but he would be
Right,
able to help, the
right.
entire cohort of people pushing for good governance, pushing for a continuation of what have been started already by then President Aquino. So that was that was the thing. It was really anchored on again the burden of responsibility, not
Mhm.
just for the local party anymore, but the responsibility of being given the chance to do your part. And I was telling myself that siguro if I didn't answer the call to run, baka I would have regretted not answering it. But at that time, Amina, I don't know if you still remember in the elections of 2016, we were six serious candidates for the vice
Right.
presidency.
Yes.
When I started, I had a 1%. I had a 1% approval rating. I was
Mhm.
number six of six.
Mhm.
So the party at that time just wanted somebody who was a
Yes.
woman, whose reputation was beyond reproach, nothing else. So it was like I had to work extra hard. I had to campaign more than what the party has prepared for us. I remember during that time, I was very very masipag. I was very hardworking. The campaign schedule given to us would be usually until 7 o'clock in the evening,
Yeah.
and after we're made to go home, I would still campaign on my own because I know that I had to work hard just to have a fighting chance at it. So it was difficult. It was 8 months of going around the country. 8 months of going around the country. I remember the first months during the campaign, I would enter a gym full of people, and people would just look at me and perhaps wondering who is this lady.
Yeah. Who is this lady?
So it was difficult, but with the benefit of hindsight, I feel like it was worth all the, not just because I won,
Mhm.
but just um deciding to have a shot at it, it was worth everything.
Yeah. You know, one of the major factors, really, in the early days, the reason why you were the sixth among six candidates was because you were a neophyte. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, was being female also a a factor? Was it something that dragged you down, that you had to show you're better than the men? Is being female
Most
a barrier?
definitely. Most definitely. And then, Amina, not just when I became a politician already, even when I was still a practicing lawyer.
Mm,
Even when I was still a practicing lawyer.
mm.
During the days that I was still a practicing lawyer, I was with the public attorney's office, and then I eventually joined Seligan. It was a very male dominated world at that time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So even when you're in litigation, you're representing your client in the courtrooms. I know for a fact that I had to work 10 times as much as my male counterpart
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to prove that I was worthy. It was difficult. There were a lot of, having come from the province also, there are a lot of societal expectations. Like if you're a woman and you're a wife and you're a mother, you have to be taking care of your children all the time, and those pressures. You have to go past that, and it only I think when I became vice president and there was a lot of fake news already, disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
The online world was weaponized. I was more vulnerable. The difficulties of being a woman politician were exacerbated because of the political climate at the time, and
Oh
because of
yeah.
the fact that it was easier to I was more vulnerable because of social media. So there have been a lot of challenges because of my gender. Most of the attacks against me were gendered attacks. It really required a lot of courage. It required a lot of strength to be able to weather all that. When I was in Congress, I also felt that there were a lot of. I think about when I was there, I think about 30% of Congress was women members of Congress
Mm-hmm.
already.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the women members of Congress were members of political dynasties. So it's
That's
like
right.
a lot of them were also insulated from the attacks. I had to contend with all of that. But at the same time, also, even if most of the time you feel like the world is unfair to women, you can't also allow the sense of unfairness to get the better of you. You can't allow that to get in the way of the work that you're doing. So you just have to continually prove yourself. Proving yourself is not exactly a bad thing,
Mm.
because consciously you work twice as hard as you would have had the limitations not been there. So ano naman siya? It's there. I have authored and co-authored a lot of bills that would have amended many of our laws, which are still discriminatory against women. And during
Very.
the committee hearings, I would be very frustrated because of the comments by
Mm-hmm.
not just male colleagues, but even my women colleagues. Um, because during the discussions, that's when you realize there's not much appreciation yet
Yeah.
of the kind of value that must be given to us. Not just because we're women, but because we're human beings,
That's
which
right.
which it's basic human right to be treated in the same manner as men are treated. So it was a source of a lot of frustrations when I was in Congress. But that sort of prepared me for. I think it has gotten far worse when I was vice president already.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I had been at the receiving end of a lot of misogynistic remarks,
Mm.
from no less than the president himself. So
Mm-hmm.
just having to react to many of that, it was a balancing act also for me. So
Yeah, and
I feel
the way you reacted, any very cool,
yeah,
very
I
gentle, but
no, I didn't have a choice. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't have a choice because I did realize that I had work to do. And I cannot be overly sensitive about many of those things, but at the same time I have to show people that I those things are totally unacceptable. So it was difficult, and I could just imagine a lot of women also going through so
right,
much,
that's right.
because they're women.
Mhm. Just to share with you, some of our guests have been political leaders in other countries, Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, and their experiences are similar to what you're experiencing. The harassment when they're going campaigning, the harassment from colleagues, the misogyny that they
Yeah.
were experiencing. And it's going to get worse, we feel, because the authoritarianism that we've been seeing expanding globally, I'm sure has also found its way into
And
Southeast Asia. So, what do you think about that situation, Lenny? What do we do so that we can really protect the democratic space where women are allowed to participate, where they can really take the stage and help the nation to move forward and to develop? What can be done?
there are a lot of things you can do, Amina. Number one, we have to keep on pushing. But number two, we have to strengthen our ranks. From experience, women are more courageous if they are with many other women.
Mm,
Um, it's more difficult to fight if you're alone. It's easier to fight when you're with other people. To be able to build women organizations is a big thing, because not only does it provide sanctuary for all of us, but when we do push for our advocacies, or we fight for issues we feel are very, very important to us women, we're more confident, we're more deliberate. Um we we you know we we have the courage to fight back, if we know that there are more of us fighting. We have experienced that in many other issues that we have been fighting about. It's better to fight if marami kayo, if there are many of you fighting. I just remember, Amina, one other thing during the campaign. We have been doing the I'm referring to the presidential campaign.
mhm.
We have been doing a lot of focus group discussions, FGDs. And
Okay.
sometimes, in FGDs, many of the groups are controlled groups.
Mhm.
So one such FGD was, among women who are not voting for me. So we were trying to extract why they are not voting for me. So they were being asked, why are you not voting for them? And Amina, in many of the groups with this kind of sample demographic, these are all women. These are all women. They would say, I'm not voting for her because he's a woman and she's weak because she's
Really?
a woman. Yeah. And that's the most frustrating part of all. These are women. And the only reason why they think I was weak because I was a woman. So I was thinking, it's not just it's not just a problem that we have with men who are misogynistic, but society has dictated that women are weak, so we have to do something about it.
I was just going to ask you a little bit more about that, Lenny. Your observation that even women, not very supportive of women candidates because they think they're weak. But Lenny, the Philippines is, leading the movement in Southeast Asia in terms of women's political
Yeah, we're actually
participation.
number
So
two.
what
We're
happened?
actually
What happened to us, Lenny? That that movement seems to be. slowing down or on the decline? And what are you going to do about it, Attorney Leni?
It's been the subject of many discussions in many of the conferences I've been attending, Amina, because the Philippines, if I am not mistaken, is number two in the Asia
Mm-hmm.
Pacific as
Yeah,
far as gender responsiveness is concerned.
right.
And to a certain extent, Amina, I would like to think that that is correct in the sense that in the Philippines, there are more women politicians. In the Philippines, there are more active women organizations. But the point here is, even if we're number two, even if we're doing better than the rest of Southeast Asia, that is no reason for us to rest on our laurels,
Or to
because we
slow
know,
down.
or to slow down, because we know for a fact that, halimbawa, women participation. When you look at women participation, we're up there. We're up there. But if you do a
Mm-hmm.
qualitative evaluation of women participation, as I was telling you earlier, many of our women politicians are there, because they're members of the political dynasty. And I'm not saying that they're bad politicians because they're members of the political dynasty. I'm just saying that data shows that a lot of these women are not really there to fight for gender equality. So there's no deliberate effort to fight for it. I would like to think that that effort has to be more deliberate, in the sense that I was telling a while ago, even if we're number two, we still have a lot of existing laws which are detrimental to women. And these laws were supposedly passed to protect women, but they are
Right.
detrimental to women. And
Yeah.
until now, they have not yet been amended, because in Congress, even if there are a lot of women already, there's no conscious effort to really look into
Right.
what are the structures that contribute to the quality of women participation in the
Yeah.
legislative bodies. So there are many things. There are many things that we can do. There are existing laws already that, we have Women's Month every March. We have Gender and Development Fund.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah.
Diba? It's mandated that a certain percentage of the local budget and the national budget should go for gender and development activities. But if you look closely at
Where
what
it's
the
going.
government, yeah, so it's sometimes, Amina, it's a one-shot thing just for compliance. So,
Yes.
halimbawa, there's a budget for Women's Month. So sometimes they spend it for t-shirts,
Yep.
and then they do a parade all over the city, just to
That's
show that
true.
they have done something. So it's
Yeah.
there's
I
not
see
been
what you
enough
mean.
qualitative evaluation of what we have been doing as far as furthering the cause for
Yeah.
gender equality is concerned. So ano talaga, it leaves much to be desired.
Yeah. We have the law. It's the implementation really and the forging forward that we really need to
Saka
work
ano din,
on.
Amina, I have been pointing this out also, kasi under the law, each government office and each local government unit has to have a gender and development officer who shall
Yes.
oversee the implement and the planning and the implementation of those plans. Pero if you look at it, Amina, most of the God point persons
Mm-hmm.
are just appointed because they are women, but that's not their primary assignment.
They
Most of
don't know
them have
anything about
other
it.
assignments,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they, sometimes if the budget officer is a woman, she will also be the gender and development. Sometimes
Mhm.
if the human resource officer is a woman, she will also be appointed. But that's not her main, you know,
That's
that's
right.
not her main responsibility. So how
Yeah.
would you expect her to, you know, to really focus on the work that's ahead? So a better appreciation of the value of the of the office should be there. Para
Yeah.
naman they would appoint somebody na ang gagawin talaga to focus on the work ahead. So
That's right.
the
One of our previous guests who's such a strong supporter of yours, Attorney Leni, Soc Reyes. Soc
yes, yes,
Reyes would reiterate the fact that just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're pro women's
I
issues. And
know.
she would cite national leaders, political leaders who occupy very high government positions who have never really done much for advancement of women's empowerment or the women's agenda. So just because you're a woman, you're right. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they're going to be pro women's agenda. But you were 6 years in the vice presidency, and you used your time very wisely to move around and
Mm-hmm.
really see what the provinces, what the communities needed. Those 6 years of engaging with our communities, Attorney Leni, what would be like the three or the one priority that you think we really should make our government implement so that our communities will become a little better? Because we were suffering from poverty, high
Mm-hmm.
education. I mean, you name it, we would see that problems. But in your experience, what should be the priority?
Ano talaga amin, if you look at the data now, in the last 6 years, talagang the main problem as far as the Philippines is concerned is education and health. If
Mm-hmm.
you look at all the international assessments, we're last as far as
Yeah,
education is
that's true.
concerned. I remember when the PISA report came out in 2019, we were last as far as reading and math is concerned, and we were second to the last as far as science was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very alarmed already at that time. I remember our office tried to implement programs to be able to help. But as you were talking to some of the national government officials who would have more influence as far as policy
Mm-hmm.
is concerned, we were told na, oh, don't believe that PISA report because that was not, that was not accurate. So there was no acceptance. There was no acceptance of the gravity of the problem that we were already having at the time. Pero the World Bank report came out in 2020, which the World
Mhm.
Bank report basically affirmed what the
Right.
PISA report was all about, and it
Right.
was it was scarier because the
Mhm.
World Bank report was saying that 90% learning poverty there was 90% learning poverty in the Philippines,
Mhm.
90%. And if you juxtapose it, now with Vietnam, and if you look at Vietnam's learning poverty, we're at 90%. Vietnam now
Mhm.
is less than 2%.
Right.
Di ba sobrang layo? Vietnam is less
Political
than
will.
2%. And all the articles now that's coming out, I just read one that came out in the Economist is saying that
Mhm.
Vietnam's economic turnaround was because it gave a lot of it has invested a lot in education.
Yes, they
So
have.
yung sa akin amin na I think that's the most basic. Parang when you talk of poverty kasi that's the one biggest problem that we have. Pero
Right.
parang it's so abstract, 'di ba?
True. Yeah.
Pero in education and health, when you talk of education and health, parang you know right away what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So just to be able to focus all our efforts on really educating our children.
Yeah.
Kasi yung World Bank report amin na parang 1 out of 10 of grade 4 students do not know how to read.
Yeah.
And now we have high school students not knowing how to read.
And this is the thing, Attorney Lenny. I'm really glad that you link health and education, because the problem is our children are malnourished. And
Totoo.
it's already been proven that, if you lack the nutrition, especially in the formative years, the development of the brain is affected.
When we decided to start doing community learning hubs,
Hmm.
when the World Bank report came out, it was also during the pandemic.
Lenny, I'm
We
glad
have
you
been,
put that up, because I was going to ask you, is that why
oo,
education is now
yeah.
an important segment of Angat Buhay?
It is because of that particular, because of that data.
Yeah.
Pero when we put up community learning hubs, we did piloting muna. It's a
Mhm.
program that we're doing with the UP College of Education. So
Mhm.
UP College of Education helped us with the modules, and they're also doing pre-assessment and post-assessment. So we had a number of pilot sites, and we tried to retest after 3 months. After 3 months of tutoring,
Mhm.
most of the sites, we started with a baseline of 30%. After 3 months, we were at 90% already. It's a 6 month program. So
Wow.
so ganun yung post assessment. But there
Right.
were two schools which
Uh-huh.
were not doing as well. So yung two schools, 60% lang siya, while the other schools were at 90% after 3 months.
Mhm.
So we decided to go down and dig deeper. Both schools were in very, very poor communities.
Mhm.
And most of the children were stunted. And pag
Yes.
tinignan natin amin na in the areas where stunting is so high, may feeding
Mhm.
programs naman ng gobyerno eh. Parang ang problema yata natin amin na we are so activity-oriented that we're
Ah,
not so conscious of outcomes.
yeah.
Kasi sabi ko, parang if we're spending so much on feeding and
Right.
we still can't solve stunting because we have one of the biggest, we have one of the highest stunting percentages all over the world. Pero we
Yeah.
have a lot of feeding programs also. Most of them start when children start their preschool, yung nursery, yung
That's really.
magde-daycare. Para
Mhm.
that's too late.
Mm.
That's too late because stunting is irreversible after the age of 5. So ngayon, our programs in Angat Buhay, we have a nutrition component. We're starting with infants until 59 months old. We should prevent stunting as early as possible. Kasi right now, pag pumasok yung bata na 5 years old, it's too late. It's too late to do intervention kasi it's irreversible. So it's difficult work, but we are very much aware of our limitations. We're a small NGO, pero ang aspiration na lang amin na now is for us to be able to showcase
Yeah.
programs that
Mhm.
work and are replicable, so that if they work and they're replicable and there are government agencies or local government units who are open to replicating them, then that will be good. And we have seen local government units already replicating. For example, the provincial government of Iloilo has been funding many programs replicating our models already. So that's very good for us, and that's the aspiration
Yeah.
that we don't get frustrated that we are only able to do so much.
Yeah.
But the
And then,
aspiration is really to be able to design programs that work.
yeah. And in our next conversation, I'll be asking you about the work that Angat Buhay has done, and I hope will continue to do in the areas of indigenous peoples and Pangsamoro. So, dear listeners, you've heard the first part of our conversation with our former Vice President, Leni.